This is a CBC podcast.
Well, it's time once again for our summer series, Ahead by a Century. Community historian Vanessa Childs-Rolls has been poring through the pages of the Sydney Daily Post to find out what stories were making headlines 100 years ago in 1921. Today, the confiscation of the greatest wine to ever hit our shores. Steve spoke with Vanessa about that intriguing headline.
Vanessa, welcome back.
Thank you.
Well, what, pray tell, is the greatest wine to ever hit our shores?
Apparently, it's an Italian wine called Moscato Pacito. And in the Daily Post, it said that they managed to find 2 cases of the finest wine that ever left the shore of sunny Italy, and undoubtedly whichever reached the fair shores of the Dominion.
I don't know what that means, but it sounds impressive.
Yeah.
Who was it destined? Really who was it destined for?
So it was destined for Mrs. Isadora Dora, and it was intended. She had intended to serve it at a holiday party, but she got busted with her illegal booze before the party even happened, and they charged her with possession of illegal liquor, and she had to go to court.
And what does the Post tell us about Ms. Adora, this nefarious criminal?
Well, Mrs. Isadora Adora was a well-known local Italian who had a small store.
And obviously fine taste in wine.
Yes,
from her home country. So why was it illegal for her to be bringing in the finest wine ever to hit our shores for her party?
Well, ever since 1878, when the Scott Act was introduced, it gave the local government power to ban alcohol if they so choose. So temperance impacted life in Nova Scotia in various phases. Sometimes prohibition was enacted and no alcohol was allowed to be served. And sometimes when a different government was elected, they would relent a little bit and they would legalize the sale of alcohol. But in 1921, in February, they had just changed the law, which made it illegal to import any alcohol into Nova Scotia.
But you could drink Nova Scotia-made alcohol, but you couldn't import any.
No, I think the issue with the law was it was illegal to have alcohol and it was illegal to make alcohol, but I don't think it was illegal to import alcohol.
So they made it alcohol-free.
Yes.
So did people take it making it themselves?
Yes, they did. I think Cape Bretoners were very astute at getting around the law by making their own alcohol.
And what other sorts of ways did Cape Bretoners go about importing their own fixes?
There were many ways that they worked around the system to get alcohol. They made their own. They brought it in on ships from St. Pierre-Miquelon. They drove it in by car. They brought it in by the railway. So there was alcohol literally flowing into Sydney, particularly from every which direction.
So tell us about some of the other stories you found in the Post from 1921.
So there's a story about the seizure on Henry Street, and it was supposed to be one of the most extensive illegal alcohol seizures ever in the history of Sydney. And the facility was supposed to have had 2 very large boilers and an extensive amount of paraphernalia. And they were producing rum or moonshine. And they were able to seize 159 gallons of rum. And it took them 2 large truckloads to get the rum and all the paraphernalia from the pier to the city warehouse where they were storing the illegal rum.
I guess there would be smaller operations around too.
Oh, many, many small operations. And lots of people were being caught with illegal alcohol because the liquor inspector had the power to go into people's houses that he suspected may have alcohol. Now, I know that my grandmother was a huge temperance advocate, but she always had a bottle hidden in the back of her toilet. So I think a lot of people are the same way. So the liquor inspector would actually raid people's houses looking for alcohol. And if he found it, he would charge you with possession of alcohol. And it wasn't just houses. He raided hotels. He raided what he thought were speakeasies at the time. He was a busy guy.
And it wouldn't be a story about rum running if there weren't some stories in 1921 about schooners.
Yes, and they did have quite a hard time catching schooners that were leaving Saint-Pierre-Miquelon, where there was no prohibition, that would bring alcohol into various parts of Cape Breton. So they would get word that there was a schooner coming through word of mouth around town, and then they'd have to call the government to send, I don't know who it would be in 1921, the Coast Guard or an inspection boat out to see if they could catch the schooner before it landed in Cape Breton. There was a story about the provincial inspector being called from Halifax to come to try and catch a schooner with a load of liquor that was headed for Glace Bay from Saint-Pierre-Miquelon. And they had to catch the train, get to Glace Bay, and then try to make the arrangements while they were in Glace Bay to send out the boat to catch the boatload that was coming through.
A tall order. I wonder if they were successful.
It doesn't say in the story, and there was nothing after it. It just said they're out there looking for it now. We don't know if maybe they'll catch it.
Now, I assume, Vanessa, that once in a while, the authorities that were missed significant loads of liquor. Where would this stuff be stored before being distributed?
Well, they stored it in the city warehouse, which must have been full to the rafters with illegal alcohol, if you believe the stories. So there was one story where there were 178 barrels of beer, whiskey, and gin, representing easily some 20,000 bottles of alcohol that were seized from a railway station. And it took them all day to transport the booze from the railway station to the city warehouse, and it was a tight squeeze to make it all fit.
The invisible hand of the market will always find a way.
Yeah, but that also meant that there was a very vulnerable spot that held all kinds of alcohol. So they had to actually employ a special constable to guard the warehouse at all times to ensure that it wasn't going to be broken into. Because it had been broken into in the past, and they'd sawed the bars off the windows, broken into the storage facility, and stolen a great deal of alcohol in the middle of the night.
And I wonder if Ms. Adora ever got to taste the finest wine ever to hit our shores.
Well, to wrap that up, they did return it to her in the end as long as it was for personal use.
Really?
Yep, but she had to pay a $200 fine, which in our money is $2,764.
Hopefully it was very good wine.
It was the best.
Cheers. Thank you, Vanessa.
You're welcome.
Vanessa Childs Rolls is a community historian in Sydney, speaking there with Steve Sutherland.
For more CBC podcasts, go to cbc.ca/podcasts.